Hello audience, fellow Astro van enthusiast. This is Dennis John Seatsma Productions, Homestead, Florida, USA. Dennis Seatsma speaking. It's the 22nd of January, 2024, 22nd of January. It's about 9 a.m., 9:02 a.m. It's a Monday. It's 69 degrees and warming. Audience of Astro van enthusiasts and others, I can't tell you how much I appreciate the thumbs up and how I appreciate the number of views when I put up a video and watch the number. And you can subscribe or unsubscribe without impact. I'm not getting paid for this, and I won't be paid until I have 4,000 subscribers. But realize you can subscribe or unsubscribe at any time to just about anything on YouTube, I think, and there's no impact. So feel free to subscribe, and if you don't like my content, you can unsubscribe. That said, let me move on to say, as far as the number of videos I'm putting up, it's going to slow down. It's not going to be a video a day or it's not going to be like this all the time. I don't want to put up too much content because you burn out your audience, and I don't want to do that. So when I'm working on projects, I video, and then I put it up as soon as I can figure out what to do with what I've taped or shot. So that said, you don't have to unsubscribe because I'm putting out too much, because I'm not going to be putting out that much in the future. I just want to get to the bottom of why this thing was making noise, and you know how much damage is in this engine. Last night I got to the point where I could pull the head, and I almost did that, but I was to the point where I wanted to quit while I was ahead. So this morning I got to get organized. I got a lot of tools in here and a lot of bolts and parts, and I got to bag and tag things before I forget where they go. So again, audience, thank you for watching. I really appreciate any feedback, any comments. If you have any ideas about what I'm doing here, how I can get this engine out of here, if I need to repair it, let's not put the cart in front of the horse. I may be able to, you know, my objective is to repair it where it sits, whatever's wrong with it. And if I can't do that, then I got to get it out. I would love some feedback on how to repair this fire damage. I told you in prior diaries I had a fire in here. I did something really dumb. I had all the plugs out to do compression check, and I had the lower plenum on this RPO L35 engine, vehicle identification number W. I had all the plugs out, and I had because I had made a mistake on the fuel injection. The supply line had popped off the spider, and that flooded the lower plenum, and there's relief holes in the lower plenum to cylinders, let's see, 1, 2, 3, cylinders 3 and 4 get it. There's relief holes. So cylinders 3 and 4 were full of gas, and I hit the key to crank it over, and gas shot out of number 3 in volume. And I had forgot to disable the ignition, and it was like a blowtorch, and it burned up my vacuum lines. So anybody that knows where I can get that connector or how to repair these vacuum lines, please help me with that, with information. Where can I get the connector? Where can I get the well, I got some vacuum lines and I've got an idea how to repair it, but I want to hear from the audience. If you would, please, you can post a comment. On Facebook, you can send me a link to parts. So I'm in different Astro van groups, and I am an enthusiast. I absolutely love the Astro van. I want it back in running order. You know, we can make it pretty later, body shop and all that, but right now it's got to be a vehicle. I desperately need this vehicle back in service. But as far as mistakes I made, I'm checking the wire to see if I cut it last night accidentally while prying on the head. And I had ohmed out all these cables. I had back probed the computer. I had back probed every wire in the harness, and I had no failures before I started working on this. And I got to get that ground wire off the back of the head. And I dropped a bolt down into the exhaust last night, and I want to get it out somehow. I don't want that in the catalytic. I need to replace the muffler on this anyway, but I don't have any heat. I don't have oxyacetylene unless I buy a kit. And I don't like using fire anyway under the vehicle because the engine's not working. So got to get the bolt out of the exhaust, and I dropped an O-ring from the air compressor. If anybody knows the part number to that back connector, I dropped an O-ring, or an O-ring set or something like that for the AC. Well, let's see, was it on the, no, it was an O-ring from one of the hydraulic lines. Anyway, it's in the grass there somewhere, and I'm going to try to find it. I know it's there somewhere. So between the bolt that went in the exhaust and the O-ring in the grass, that's the damage so far. I think, you know, while I'm in here, I'm going to pull off the harmonic balancer and the timing chain cover, and you know, do a proper job, replace the seal on the front, because I had a hell of a leak here from something, and I'd already replaced those two hydraulic lines for the oil cooler to the, you know, so I'd already done some things here, so I might as well, I'm in this deep, I might as well do a little more cleanup. And I did price out another engine, but I would rather fix this one because I'm very thrift-minded. So audience, again, thanks for watching. Audience, Astrovan fans and people with the 4.3 liter V6 engine interests, 94 Astrovan LT EXT I bought new in 94. It's 11:05 a.m. in southeast Florida, Homestead, Florida, south of Miami. It's January 22nd, it's a Monday, it's 78 degrees now. I organized a bit. I bagged and tagged all my parts, and I'm taking notes, fastidious notes on my computer and Word documents, and doing folders and all that stuff so I can organize this and then use what I'm saying in my notes for my video stuff. And this is a video diary. This is a documentary. It's not a how-to. I make mistakes, like dropping one of the 6 exhaust manifold bolts into the header, and I have to get that out of the exhaust system before I start the engine. I don't know how I'm going to do that. So that said, last night I accidentally abused some of the wiring here, and I jeopardized this green wire that's with an orange wire that goes to this connector, and I don't know what it's for. Anyway, I have the 1994 GM factory service manuals that I bought when I bought the van, so I'm sure I can ferret this out, and you know, if I have to, I'll replace the whole connector, but probably won't have to. It's got to be something close to this point. Now this connector here is the one you disconnect, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, when you do the engine timing, the base engine timing. And that said, I lifted the left bank head, excuse me, from the dowel pins using my hands first, and a small screwdriver, then a larger screwdriver, and there's dowel pins on the far side on the bottom, and that just leaves a couple more things I got to do before I can remove this head. I have a retainer, like a 10mm bolt that goes to the AC hose for the compressor. I think it's the, I don't know, there's a low side and a high side, and I'm not sure which is which, but anyway, I got to get that loose, so that 10mm bolt, and I got a bigger bolt down that's hard to reach. Probably going to have to crawl under the van to get to that. That looks like a 14mm deep well socket, and I've been spraying both of those with penetrating fluid overnight, and if I get those off, then I can take the head out. And once I get the heads out, I'm going to take a couple of pictures, because I called Cylinder Head Exchange in Clearwater, Florida, St. Petersburg, Clearwater Head Exchange, and asked them about, I'm going to ask them about high performance heads for this, or regular old heads, and then I'm going to get prices from local machine shops for redoing the head. And it's just a repair. And I love the folks at Clearwater Head Exchange, because I've done business with them in the past. They make a really good marine head for the 3.7 liter Mercruiser with all its name, the MCM 470, the MCM, a dozen names. Mercruiser named basically the same 4-cylinder aluminum block engine, but that's a different playlist on my channel. Anybody can subscribe or unsubscribe without consequence to my YouTube channel. No monetary, no hassles. If you like what I'm doing, subscribe. If you don't, you can unsubscribe. Last time I said that, I lost a subscriber. Anyway, right now I got 350 and I need 4,000 subscribers, and I don't think I'll ever have that. So this is mainly a video diary, video for my own, so I can remember how I can put it back together again. But of the one seal that I lost, I think it's on that lower hose for the oil cooler. I think it dropped in the grass, and I figure if I stare at the grass long enough, I'll finally see it. It's probably laying on top of the grass. But I want to get those two bolts loose, the retainer for the AC line, and the ground. That's a very important ground, so I have to electrically reground those before I get into what I plan to do next, which is one of my viewers complained about my long-winded 1 hour 5-minute video on how to check for fluctuating oil pressure and validating the sensor. And before I can do that, I'll do the electrical part first, because the oil part, I have to repair my gauge, and that'll tell me if I got oil pressure or not when I spin that tool in the back. So even though it's a lot more logical to do the mechanical first and then the electrical part, the fuel oil pressure later, I'm going to do it as easiest for me. But I have to remember to pull a fuel pump relay, because if you do that, fail to remove that fuel pump relay, as soon as you turn the key, it's going to start squirting gas everywhere. You don't want that. Now, I could have disconnected it, the mid-frame connector, but I'm not going to do that, because that pegs the fuel level meter on my dash, and I don't want to damage that. I'd have to put a resistor, and I'd have to ferret out the wiring, and I don't want to do all that. It's too much work. I'm trying to be logical and efficient management of my time, besides talking to this camera ad nauseum. So, thank you for watching. Give me a thumbs up if anything in here is interesting to you. I'm taking all kinds of notes. You can check out my research by fast forwarding to the end of the video. I wish I could put all my notes up, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. Eventually I'll get skilled enough in video where I can take a document and scroll through it as a slideshow, and you can read all my notes I'm taking in Word documents. And if anybody knows how to do that, or a piece of software that does it real well, let me know. I'm a neophyte and a learner when it comes to doing videos. I have some software already. I have creative, I can't even tell you the name of the software, but I've got 2 different platforms for doing video right now on my computer. I can get more, but I'm trying to stick to the first 2 till I learn them. And thanks for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you like anything. Bye. Hello audience of Astro van fans, or 4.3 liter V6 fans, whatever you like. I've bagged and tagged things up and getting ready to take a break for lunch, but it's 11:53. Today is January the 22nd. It's a Monday, 2024. I have the other head removed, and like I said, I damaged this wire. The insulation on it, I don't know how badly, if it cut any conductors or not, but I'll deal with that later. This green, and it looks like green and white. The other wire looks to be orange. It has a tracer, I can't tell. But anyway, I pinched it when I was trying to pry off the head. Now, I talked ad nauseum about this ground. I finally got it loose. It's a 14mm deep well socket, and this is a very important ground on this wiring harness. There's one in the front that goes to the left bank head, and one in the front that goes near the water pump. And if both those grounds aren't good, you're gonna have trouble. So I was highly recommending running additional ground wires from the mid-frame connector to the back of the engine, to the starter, to the main grounding point. You know, get all the ground points together with an additional grounding wire. Now, do you have to do it? No. This is a diary, a documentary. This is how Dennis does it. And extra ground wires don't hurt. And the older GM vehicles suffer from corroded grounds. But I wanted to say something about this bolt. It's a stud, and it's used to hold the fuel injection lines. Where am I? All right, there's a stud there, and to hold the back of the stud, or the front of it, yeah, the front of it, you have to use a 14mm, a skinny 14mm wrench. Like, there's a skinny one. That's 16, but it doesn't matter. You get the idea. I got a whole set of them here. Sometimes you need the skinny wrenches to hold a stud like that. Now, I've sprayed it down again with more penetrating fluid, the Aerocoil that I like so much, and gonna let it sit for a little while before I get that stud out of there. And it supports the HK11 lines. This is on the back. I'd like to come up with a part number to replace these, because it's rubber between here and the connection going to the hard lines back to the fuel tank, and they're 30 years old, people. So if you got a part number, please share it with me. It's a 94 Astro van LT EXT. It's vehicle identification name, letter W as in whiskey, not to be confused with the other Z and I think Y. They got 2, but anyway, this one is W, and it's a RPO L35 engine. And oh, those heads were heavy. I took some pictures of them. I'm going to send the pictures over to Clearwater Head Exchange and see how much it costs for high performance aluminum heads for this engine. And if it's not too bad, well, I'll think about it. Then I want to get a price for rebuilt heads or used but good heads. But the cylinders seem to be in really good condition here. There's hardly any ridge at all, like nothing. And all the cylinders look fantastic, which explains why my compression and leak down checks were good. I don't know about the valves. I'd love to put aluminum heads on here, but I don't know if I can afford it. Probably not. Probably way too expensive. But I'll send the picture over, like I promised, to Clearwater Head Exchange and see what they tell me, and, you know, maybe talk to Jegs and Summit Racing. Now, I keep talking. I love this little set of sockets, metric sockets. It's SUM 90200. Part number SUM-90200, Summit Racing. Love that. I bought several sets of those. They're very handy. And like I said, I like these kind of wrenches to get behind the studs and stuff. And then here's a set of Craftsman. So I'm showing you the tools I'm using. Now, the connectors on the left side, on the driver's side of the radiator for the oil lines, are 20 millimeter. And I got this nice 20 millimeter wrench with a flange on one side and a regular spanner, open end spanner on the other. And let's see, what am I going to do next, people? I've talked about what I've done. You can look in the past video diaries. I try to date them, and at some point we're going to stop because I'm running out of time to work on this project. I've been hitting it real hard and steady, but you won't see anything new videos come out on the channel until I get more time. I'm trying to explain it easiest way I can. But what I want to do next is I want to show you how to validate the gauge on the van for accurate oil pressure using a resistor. I'm going to use a 1/4 watt or 1/2 watt, or it doesn't matter, the wattage doesn't matter, like 25 ohms between the center pin of this connector, the A pin, to ground. Of course, I have to jury rig some grounds here because I've got it all disconnected with the heads off. And from there to ground, it ought to read, I don't know, 40 psi or 30 psi, something like that. And once you verify the wiring on the van's okay and the gauge is good, then you can go on to do the electrical sensor and the mechanical gauge. But I have to repair the mechanical gauge before I can do any of that. And I don't know if I'll be successful with that. So, and the reason I'm spending so much time showing you the cylinders, on all of these car shows I watch, you know, I'm a fan of roadkill and no nonsense, no how on the internet, and I like watching roadworthy rescues, and I like on the internet I Do Cars. And on all these shows, they don't show you the cylinders. They say the cylinder, well, I Do Cars, he shows you everything on the internet as he tears down an engine. But I don't know if there's any advantage to putting aluminum heads on a 4.3 liter V6 GM engine of this vintage 1994, unless it's just less weight. So if it's just less weight, then I'll probably save the money, and you know, I may need the money to repair the short block. I wonder what condition the camshaft and these lifters are in. I don't want to tear it down that deep until I find out what the clunking noise is and find out why I have low or no oil pressure. And that's, I should have said that earlier, but that's the point of this video diary, is I'm trying to discover what's wrong with this short block. What's wrong with it? And you know, it started well and ran well. It just, you know, had the noise, and then oil pressure went from 40. It was fluctuating, then it went to 0. And of course, I did an earlier thing with the fluctuating. But I'm going to try to cut it down to 5 minutes or so on the oil pressure thing, if I can manage to do that. So again, fans, thanks for watching. Subscribe or unsubscribe, no consequence to me, but I appreciate subscribers, because my goal is 4,000 subscribers, and I have 350 right now in 7 years of doing this. And I have different playlists, so check that out. I have eclectic interests: marine engines, car engines, different tasks, maintenance wise, repair wise. So check out the other playlists. I try to list it by, you know, like 4L 60E transmission. That's one of my playlists. I also have a Facebook group that does that. And but if you go to apply to any of my groups, you have to say who you are and where you live, and it doesn't have to be down to the address or even just the region, like New York City, Miami, Florida, you know, Oregon, LA, just a general idea and what your interests are. Why do you want to join the group? And I'll let you in. But if you don't, if you just say yes, 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 that won't cut it, people. I have to vet people in these groups more than that. I have to know that they're really have an interest in the group, not just joining it so they can spam people. Anyway, thanks for watching. Okay, I just remembered something. I had this 0 to 600 psi oil pressure gauge in my toolbox for working on marine, the hydraulic lift for the stern drives, and they're rated at like 600 or 300, I forget which, but this will let me mechanically check the oil pressure. So we'll get on to that next before we worry about the electrical. The electrical is a little bit more complicated because I don't want to peg my meter, so I got to put the sensors into the electrical and ground everything so I don't peg any meters when I do that. And on the harness here you can see that the ground that goes on the front of the engine and the connectors. And I don't know if anybody makes these wiring harnesses to sell or not. If they do, please post a comment. Anything you tell me I can post to the groups and help other enthusiasts who are trying to restore these old Astro vans. They're getting more popular now. I'm not sure why, but I guess people have memories of them when they were a kid riding around in an Astro van and how reliable they were in those years. But the 4L60E transmission's really improved over the years with the new parts and the new materials like Kevlar. And you know, that transmission came out in '93, I think it was, the 4L60E, and as far as I know it's still in service. And it just, you know, they're building them now for 700 horsepower engines. The 4L60E can handle, they say, what I see on the internet. So again, thanks for watching. Let's see if we got any oil pressure as soon as I get a drill motor. Hello, this is Dennis John Seatsma Productions, Dennis Seatsma, Homestead, Florida, USA. This is a video diary, a video documentary on working on my 1994 Astro van. And I have a clunking noise in the engine and had fluctuating oil pressure. So I want to find out if that's a real problem or not. So I bought this kit online, and it failed the first time I used it at the quick disconnect. Now it has another one in here, and I don't know if I can fix it by moving that to the other side, but that's a thing. I sent a note to the manufacturer to say, hey, help me out here, send me a new one or a new adapter or something. Anyway, on an earlier video I ferreted out that the correct threads on the oil pressure connector on the back of the engine on this 4.3 liter V6 GM engine dated 1994 when I bought it is 1/4 inch by 18 NPT. So you can buy a kit like this, like I did, and there's all kinds of them on the internet you can buy for oil pressure gauge tester, or you can just buy the gauge itself with the correct threads. Now in this case I did this already and I had 0 oil pressure. It was fluctuating before and then it went to 0. So one of the Astro van groups suggested I buy at AutoZone this OEM 27060 oil pump primer for GM V6 and V8. And the thing's a perfect fit and seems to be just right for this job. But when I crank it over with the drill, I got no oil pressure. And the sump's full of oil. So it's a real problem. And I don't know the solution. So I'm going to have to pull the oil pan next to see what's going on here. And later on, I'll show you how to check when I get oil pressure after I repair this, if it needs a new oil pump or something. Probably what I think is wrong is I think I got a problem on the lower end and the screen's clogged on the pump. So, but I like this tool. I think it's fitting right. It's got the right end on it. It's got the thing that mates up good with this kind of oil pump, I do believe. So it ought to be a good thing to use and get oil pressure, if there is any to be had. Oh, wait, I got oil now. Hey, all right. So now maybe it wasn't engaged. Let's try it again with the actual thingamabob. Okay. See what oil pressure we get. Okay. What the heck is this? Oh well, when I pulled the heads, water went down in there, so anyway. Something's coming up. Okay. I may not have this sealed right. The hole, so it develops oil pressure. But anyway, this is how you test the mechanical pressure. And I don't have this tool seated in there properly apparently to stop that oil pressure from coming up around the... Anyway, hope you're enjoying the video. Dennis John Seatsma Productions. Do-it-yourself work can result in death or injury, so do it at your own risk or don't do it. Hire somebody. Hire a SAE certified mechanic, or I don't know what they have anymore. I'm just a hobbyist and enthusiast, and this is my video diary documentary. Okay, unfortunately people, this tool is not working properly. I have oil squirting out of the top and don't know what to do. Now I did take a 16 millimeter and I turned a crankshaft because it was being interfered with by the balance shaft on this General Motors 1994 4.3 liter V6 engine on my 1994 Astro van. So I tried moving that top disc down and it just wouldn't go, and even if it did, it's interfered with by that lifter retainer on the passenger side. So if OEM Tools is listening, you could shave down that disc a little bit or redesign it, maybe put a knurled knob or something and make it smaller diameter so that top disc that holds the oil pressure will seal, because right now I can't get any oil pressure. And I turned it over by hand because I didn't want to do anything electrical, because I've had a fire in here already, and anybody knows how to repair those vacuum lines or get that connector, please post a comment. Or anyway, I have something happening here, but I'm not to where I can tell, because every time I do that I'm losing oil pressure through the top that's not sealed, because I can't get the disc to go down and get the tool to engage no matter how hard I try. Now if I had a grinder, and I don't, I'd shave this thing down and make it work, but I think I'm going to move on to pulling the pan. Turning the engine over by hand with this 16 millimeter socket seems to be fine. I don't feel any resistance at all. I'm going to thunk the top of the pistons to see if I can feel any looseness or rod knock or anything like they always show on the I Do Cars channel. But anyway, it is January 22nd, 2024. It's about 12:30. It's a Monday. It's 80 degrees. And thank you people on the Astro Van groups for recommending this tool. But it just won't work for me with that thick, with that disc there. It just, I can't get it to, I can't get that disc to seat and give me oil pressure. And when I try, you know, I'm getting that. So anyway, post a comment if you know the answer. Thanks for watching. Dennis Seatsma, Homestead, Florida, USA. Do-it-yourself work can result in death or injury, so do it at your own risk. Thank you. Okay, people, audience, it's 1:31 on January 22nd, 1:31 in the afternoon Eastern Time in Homestead, Florida, USA. Now that I found I got a gauge that works, and I think I can fix my other gauge, maybe. I haven't really looked at that. I was spending too much time thinking about what I want to do next. Well, since I can't seal the top of this where the tool goes in, I can't seal that and develop oil pressure, so I can't measure oil pressure mechanically, and electrically doesn't matter. I'm thinking I should put the distributor back in and see what kind of oil pressure I have by cranking the engine. But I don't want to max out all my analog gauges, which would be coolant, fuel level, and oil pressure. All of those would peg with no resistors or sensors. So I'll either plug the sensors back in or put resistors in. And plugging the sensors in would probably be easier than anything else. And then let it crank with the distributor and see what that happens that way. So I'm going to eat lunch. I haven't had lunch yet, and then come back to this later. I really don't want to pull this oil pan and replace the oil pump and then put it all back together and find I still have a clunking noise. I have to discover what's causing that noise. It could be washed out camshaft bearings, it could be the balance shaft, it could be so many things on the lower end. So I got to figure this out before I take it apart further. So that's what I'm thinking about. And if you have any ideas, post a comment. And I put a short up about, you know, how I'm trying to use this tool. This looks like the right tool, but I just can't seal it at the top using this tool. It doesn't work on this engine, even though the box says it works on GM V6, V8 engines. So maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I'm not using the tool appropriately, but it says it's the right tool, but I can't get it to work to develop any oil pressure. I see it pumping, but anyway, we'll carry on, and you can see how fragile that ground is on the front of the engine, and you can see how fragile it is on the back of the engine. And so I'm going to prove the grounds on this thing sooner or later. I'm going to run another bonding wire all through the vehicle, all the way to the battery from the major ground points, even though I don't need to. So anyway, I'm off subject again. Thanks for watching. Hello audience, it's 5:30 p.m. It's January 22nd, 2024. It's a Monday afternoon, about 80 degrees. I don't think I'm going about this the right way, given the matter some thought. This tool I'm probably not using as I should be. The tool is a primer. That's what it's designed to do, and not develop oil pressure with the heads and the intake manifold removed. So tool probably works fine if I had the heads and the intake manifold installed. This engine, which is a RPO L35 V6 1994 Astro van, if I had it together, this tool would probably be fine to develop oil pressure. So I'm thinking I could just set the heads and the intake on and then see if I can get oil pressure. That is one thing I could do. The other thing I could do is I could drain the oil and the oil filter, inspect for fragments of metal to see if there's any material there from something disintegrating on the lower end. I don't find anything wrong on the upper end. The other thing I could do, and that's what I think I'm going to do next before I crawl underneath the van and start removing the oil pan and all of that and getting real dirty. I could dummy up the sensors with resistors for the fuel level and the oil pressure and the coolant level, as to not stress out my gauges. And most gauges, automotive and marine, unless I'm mistaken, the analog gauges are like 30 to 140 ohms, unless I'm mistaken. Now in the past I've messed around with this oil pressure and found that 25 ohm gave me a good reading for oil pressure from 25 ohms from pin A to ground on that connector. So, you know, I could just plug the sensors in to not stress the dash. I don't know about digital dash. This is an analog dash on my van, and I'm only talking about my van. This is a documentary. I can't say what it is on all the vans, but I assume it may be common to the other Astro vans of this generation. I assume. Don't know for sure. That's not a statement. That's saying I assume. I'm guessing. So if I found some resistors and dummied up those 3 readings by ferreting out the wiring and then cranking the engine through with the distributor installed, I might get some oil pressure, maybe. Don't know for sure. So it's going to be trial and error, and I'm going to do the last thing first because it's the easiest thing to do, is crank it over with the starter and the sensors all dummied up with resistors so I don't stress the dash, and then see what happens. And the purpose is to try to find what was making the clunking noise. Clunk, clunk, clunk. You look at the last video diaries in the past. I did several recordings where I had the tick, tick, tick and the clunk, 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 and I can't find a cause for that. And I don't want to tear this thing all the way down and put it all back together again without finding that a cause. And getting the block in and out of the van is not easy because it's on the subframe. So I definitely need to do more testing and diagnostics and analysis before I take things apart. So anybody watching this video, if you have any ideas, am I going about this logically, methodically, you know, or what else could I do? So Dennis John Seatsma Productions, Homestead, Florida, USA. Do-it-yourself work can be dangerous. Do at your own risk. Death or injury can result from do-it-yourself work. And audience, thanks for watching.